From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Knapsack.
I'm Jen Landa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and I'm still in my childhood home with the lights set up to make me look as haggard and tired as possible, apparently. So, good job, me.
you look solid. Solid. You got a solid haircut. You're working it. You're out there chasing your dreams. For those that don't know, I imagine at this point everyone should be aware, but we've gained a lot of new subs in the last few weeks covering Andor. Joseph is making a feature film. I love the journey, Joseph, of chasing a big Hollywood dream by going back home.
It is the way of things. It is the way of things. Yes. Anybody not cut up, shot a film here in my dad's house in Minneapolis, and I'm back to do some post-production. So that's why I'm in this strange room and not bathed in my normal blue light in Los Angeles.
The blue light of LA. We're here to talk Star Wars news. We got some things to discuss. Yes, it's a quieter news time, but that doesn't mean they're not stories out there. Thanks to everyone who joined us live for Star Wars Questions yesterday as we get ready also for Andor to wrap up. Big week in Star Wars. Before we get to all that, we'd like to remind you, as always, that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Kindle, or MP3 player. We're recommending Reign of the Empire, Mask of Fear, The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed. Great book. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Once again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. That's our Audible A. Joseph out there in the Midwest, as I reminded myself the other day. Thank you for the Midwest. What's our asks and updates?
We are building to a new goal on Patreon. We so appreciate all the support on Patreon. We would like to get to 430 paid patrons, at which point we will do a special classic episode of Star Wars Ranked. We'll take an old episode that we love, and Jennifer is going to add exciting new visuals when we get to 430 paid patrons. Patreon's bouncing up and down a little bit right now, which is totally understandable because the world and things that we will be talking about. But thank you so much, everybody who has supported us there. You can also follow us on Blue Sky, continuing to grow our numbers there. And I think you both did a celebration of the fact that we got to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube last week when I wasn't here, right?
Yeah. We pumped our fists in joy and thanked everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Big number. Big number.
Yes, we threw imaginary confetti.
Well, very happy to be here for time.
That's what we did. We just did that. Yes, no, big number, actually, big number. Even though it's small in the grand scheme of YouTube, and it was something we wanted to work towards. So thank you all again. Life adventures. I'm running down my list, but Jen, you start here. Did you dress up as any prequel characters this week?
No, that's what I was just thinking about. It felt like Star Wars just came in and then Star Wars just kind of left my life, with the exception of Andor. But it's like, it was so much Star Wars with May the 4th and then the Empire Strikes Back screening with the TCM Classic Film Festival. It was just like, wow, I'm living it. And then it's like, okay, now I'm back in this barren desert. No costumes, just 3 episodes left of Andor, which is going to be really sad. The show is ending. I can't believe it. It's shocking. So I have nothing. I went to the beach. Of course, I don't want to say I hate the beach. I don't like the beach.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, of course, then I throw out my Anakin quote, not liking sand. No one laughs but me.
I mean, I nod. I get it. Sand ain't your friend sometimes.
No, it's terrible. So anyways, that was my Mother's Day. Making the kids happy.
I didn't know where the story was going to end. That was where it ends. Anyways, that was my Mother's Day. We did everything I hated.
I was like, this is so fitting. It's just so fitting that, like, my kids were on cloud 9. They loved it. We went with my sister and her family. And she said that she went to Tomorrowland at Disneyland on Saturday. And she said that she saw this man who was busy eating his food in Tomorrowland. And there was Star Wars music playing. And she said at one point he put down his fork and did this at one part. She didn't know the music. She's like, no. And then he went back to eating. She said it was the dorkiest thing she had ever seen, and she loved it. And she's like, he reminded me of you.
Okay. Good.
Yes,
Good.
I would do that.
Good.
I would do that.
Absolutely.
Star Wars fans get it. So, anyways, that was my Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, little spoon conducting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah. Who doesn't love it? Didn't it? In the Star Wars music.
I'm sorry your children got you sand for Mother's Day.
They had a blast.
The joy of your kids' joy, right? That's
right.
That's what it is. I went home. I did have a little bit of beach myself. I was Ken. My job was beach. But up to my hometown, there's a lot of different beaches to choose from, Jen. So maybe we have to find the right beach. So I didn't do the big sandy, wide open surf and Pismo beach. We went up to Shell Beach, which was more tide pools, tinier little beach, crowded, but I was able to walk in tennis shoes and jeans with dignity and skill, finding crabs and sea urchins on the tide pool. So it was a lot of fun. And as my mom says, "You're my gift." So that's all I gave her the gift of showing up and walking around.
Your presence is a present, as I tell my kids. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
I called my mom. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh,
My call was a present. Yeah.
Call it is. Yeah, so that's my life. Other than that, I want to update, very important update. I did train the 3 squirrels that come to my backyard now for breakfast, provided by me. I trained one of them who's confident, and the chubbiest of the squirrels, who's happily eating the peanuts I put out there. They're now eating directly from my hand. And this is what squirrels do. But you gotta, this is the only connection I have right now with another living being in my house. And this little squirrel, Joseph, he put his little paw on my hand to steady himself as he lifted it up to take the peanut away from me. And it's a glorious day, everybody.
How long did it take? How many encounters before the squirrel trusted you?
I'd say after about the 4th morning, after about the second morning, he was like, "Hey, something's going on here. There's a grocery store worth of almonds and pecans and peanuts and sunflower seeds." 3rd day, then there was a little break for travel, and then because I came outside and I kind of was looking at him, and he stopped, turned around, and walked towards me, and I was like, I got him. He didn't scuttle away. And we have these windows in the hallways that you can see out in our little patio, as you know, Joseph, you've been there, but there's a tree, and swear to God, dude gets on the. I know it's a dude. Seen some things. Dude gets on the branch and looks into the house at me.
Oh yeah, peeks in to see is Nutman around.
Is weird
Nutman home?
Nutman making little noises to me. Is he around? So a banner day. Okay. So that's my Star Wars adventure. I feel like Leia and Wicket.
Yeah, connecting, man. I want to come over. I've never got a chance to feed a squirrel.
You gotta. We'll arrange.
Squirrel Dad.
I would love that.
Squirrel Dad, indeed. So that's my life adventure. Joseph, a lot going on, as you said, but also we're going to catch up to you on Tales of the Underworld. But what's going on with you?
Yeah. I was really sad to miss last week between talking about Tales of the Underworld and May 4th adventures. I flew last week on May 4th, so I didn't get to do a ton, but I did set my alarm for the release of the droid pack of 3 3/4 action figures from Book of Boba Fett, which included the beloved astromech drummer droid. So I finally did get an astromech drummer droid to be my little friend. And my wife sent me a picture of the boxes that already arrived. She hasn't opened them yet, but so I can't wait to go home and you can be friends with squirrels. I'll try to feed my droid and see if my droid will drum along with me.
5 days. You'll get there in 5 days.
Yeah. So then I'm here doing all sorts of different post-production things, but one of the things I'm working on is the score with a friend of mine who's just a fabulous composer. He's got a great studio, and he got a drum set in there so I can play some drums for my movie, so I can use some of the different skills that I like doing, and I'm very rusty. So I've told this story many times on ForceCenter, that one of the first times I really connected to the deeper meanings of Star Wars is when my dad was trying to teach me to play the drums, and he was, teaching me to count, and I was trying to count everything, and I was just getting very rigid and tight. And then I started hearing like the wisdom of like, trust your feelings, let go, all those things. And it's like, oh wow, when I calm down. I can feel my body change. I can hear things in the music and feel it. And it was really nice to be like, oh, that's my Star Wars adventure this week. Of like, I need to remember those Yoda lessons in drumming, which was very, very fun.
Larry, yeah, perfect, wonderful lessons found. This is why we do love adventures. They're everywhere, truly, truly. Where I think when it comes to drumming, I'd be Luke, just slunking off while the X-wing goes back into the bog. But you got it.
Yeah.
But you did. You got a chance to watch Tales of the Underworld. Jen and I, Jen and I talked about it. I know my mouth is not moving this morning. I'm too excited about the squirrels. But we want to get your thoughts a little bit here on it.
Yeah, I was really excited for the Ventress chapters, so I power watched them early in the morning on May 4th at like 5 a.m. before my flight, and then slowly watched the Cad Bane ones once I got here to Minneapolis. And I understand that they feel a little, besides Ventress's resurrection, I feel like they felt a little bit more a slice of life. Let's meet new shades of this character. For Ventress, let's up new possibilities. So like, I didn't think they were bad or poorly done at all. I just didn't think they were as sort of like revelatory, of like Yaddle's death, all these kinds of, a little bit of a bigger pop to Bear Sophie. We'd been waiting for decades, not quite decades, a long time. Anyway, but I did just really want to say that I really did think that Ventress's resurrection was fantastic. That I really, really responded to, and think all of it is worth it. For that, for me, we get so caught up, and we did a whole live cues episode about how many characters should come back. What is the means by which they come back? Do you accept it in canon? And it's such a great opportunity for storytelling the way a character comes back. And I loved that for Ventress and for the Night Sisters. It was somewhere in between the sort of Jedi and Sith way of the Jedi training to be selfless and, remain cognizant of their own existence so they can help others. And the Sith just haunting things because they won't let go. I love that this was like totally like Night Sisters weird magic making a deal with the cosmic force of this person's love will allow you to continue on, but you can never talk to them because we've made a sort of deal. And I saw just a little bit of chatter about strong opinions about the storytelling nature of, is that cruel to do to Ventress that she can't talk to Voss versus does she need a man to define her? And I have no need to wade into those opinions for myself. I just think in terms of Star Wars storytelling about resurrection, about clinging to life, it was just really cool and beautiful that it was a difference in like making a deal, and it felt so much like the Night Sisters. And then I liked the Cad Bane thing was kind of just what I expected, which was let's give him the treatment of no one's born just a bad seed. He goes through all these lost connections, and the revelation of, hey, he's got a child who hates him. That'll be a fun thing on rewatching Cad Bane's, interaction with Boba Fett of like the bitterness, not just philosophically I disagree, but the bitterness of you were a loner like me, and now you've got like a whole family, say no to drugs campaign, and I'm here alone with a child who hates me. Yeah, I thought it added a little some fun dimension to Cad.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree that you're saying too. This big idea, and it's something we've put into practice as best we can over the years here. Of maybe not everything jumps out to you in a piece of Star Wars storytelling, but if there's one thing you absolutely love, that makes it all worth it. Like you said, I love the return of Ventress, seeing it after reading it and all those kind of things. That really worked for me. All of it worked for me. These, as we discussed last week, so we don't need to go deep into my thoughts, but like, okay, I'll watch these again. That's the review, right? Okay, I'll watch these again. But yeah, love what it does for those that love these characters. And yeah, I think without wading into any deeper debate over Ventress, I like the idea. I like that deal. It's very mythic. It's hell, it's like a Meg Ryan, Nicolas Cage movie, isn't it? I give up forever to see you. Isn't that it? Is that no one else watched that movie? Okay.
Wait, which one was that?
It was in the 90s with the big Goo Goo Dolls song.
Oh my God.
He's an angel.
Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Oh,
he's an angel.
That's right.
The deal goes wrong.
There's
You
been
know?
so many
Ooh.
things. That Nick Cage.
Yes. And this was back in regular Nick Cage era, you know.
Yeah, before
Yeah,
it went
yeah.
super wild. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
And I did like that. They all the tales of have been good about the contrast, and as people have pointed out, that this is a story about Ventress finding connection with the
Mhm.
childlike figure, and Cad Bane losing connection to a child and to his own innocence and childness. And like, I think all that was they're good and well done. And I think for me, it's just like, it doesn't always have to be fireworks. It doesn't always have to be break the internet storytelling.
Yeah. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's fair.
any follow-up thoughts, Jen, or any more Goo Goo Dolls songs that you want to sing?
No, I'm going through Meg Ryan's catalog in my brain right now. So many great films. But Asajj Ventress. Yeah, I like your approach. If I think of it more like a slice of life, then I'm less, I don't want to say disappointed, but I really was kind of hoping for more revelatory things to happen. And when it didn't, I was like, because I do feel like we got that with the Cad Bane story where he has a kid. Oh my gosh. All these things. So yeah. And everyone keeps saying that she's going to appear in the mall show, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, just
Yeah.
whetting our appetite.
Yeah. I mean, it is funny that how much some of these tales of the underworld are like, well, this has always been a question, so let's address it. Here's what happened to Yaddle. And a lot of the others are just like, well, we left Beresofi on a cliffhanger. Now we leave Asajj and her new friend, Lyko, I think. Set up for future adventures. So
there you go. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for that, sir. Catch us up. And it is the 1998 film City of Angels. There you go. City of Angels. It was driving me crazy. Or you can just watch Joe versus Volcano all over again. Or When Harry Met Sally. A movie I think I've seen When Harry Met Sally more than Empire Strikes Back. I think I have. Maybe.
What?
I have. Yeah, I love that film. Scott Princess Leia. Come on. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want that wagon wheel coffee table.
All
right. Let's do some Star Wars news. We're going to get to some stuff here that we'll just say right now this might spill over into some real world conversation. If that's not on your docket today, we understand. But this is the real world smashing into Star Wars, and it's ongoing as we even record this episode, which is part of the discussion. After several delays of the much anticipated Star Wars retro figure collection, Target has canceled pre-orders on the Hasbro set that was exclusive to Target stores there. The set was the New Hope figure multi-pack consisting of Dr. Evazan, Walrus Man, Han Solo, and Stormtrooper Disguise, Metal Ceremony Luke, Rebel Fleet Trooper, and Sand Trooper. That's a great pack of figs. The official reason was stated as, quote, issues on the vendor's side. So we'll dive into that. There's some Hasbro retro collection sets, as far as I can tell, looking up what are manufactured in Vietnam. We've got the updated story of 90 days on the tariffs between us and China being slashed, but they're still present, whether slashed or not, and that's just today. So reality has come crashing to Star Wars toy world. Joseph, as the kind of major memorabilia toy collector in the group, I lean on you here. What do you make of this, and what do we make of this?
Yeah, I find it painful on multiple levels. This collection is particularly great, and it might be great for many, many people, but it is, I think, certainly targeted, at least partially, at people who really love that Kenner line. Whether you grew up with it or you're a collector in the past, these are like, with the exception of Walrus Man, these are the figures of like, why didn't they make them? Or maybe if it had continued one more time, like I have so many conversations, especially like when the Power of the Force line started in the mid 90s, the Power of the Force 2, technically, of like, they're finally going to make the characters that they didn't make. Dr. Evazan, Han Solo and Stormtrooper Disguise, the Ceremony Luke, Rebel Fleet Trooper, Sand Trooper. Those were some of the ones that I was most excited to buy because they never made them in the classic Kenner. This is great. So I was very tempted and excited by this. I wasn't going to get them anyway because I am personally boycotting Target right now. Target is based in my hometown of Minneapolis, grew out of here, Minnesota, and it's a large company. But in general, as large companies go, it has always been more a friend to the community and more progressive. So the fact that seconds after Trump was installed in office, they bent the knee and killed their DEI program is very not like Target in my experience. And it was sort of extra hurtful to me. So I personally made the decision to boycott them. And then now on top of it, the tariffs. So for me, it is sometimes action figures in particular are the escapism part of Star Wars of like, hey, if I don't want to be debating a hot button issue, I still like my toys. And it is the escapism part of Star Wars being attacked on multiple fronts for myself.
So I actually just looked at the Target website and it has 101 reviews, 1 stars, 1 star, and all the people are really, really upset that their pre-order was canceled. And I mean, like this set is $60. Like this is not some cheapy set, right? This is like for serious collectors. And it's pretty shocking. You know, it's hard not to think of Mon Mothma's speech, "The monster will come for us all." Now, obviously, we're talking about action figures to put things in perspective, but it's one of those things like you're saying, like you can't, like we can try and ignore it and you can be like, oh, Star Wars is escapism and I don't have to think about quote unquote politics, but it's like we are all going to be affected in one way or another. And this is now one way that people are figuring this out. And there are a lot of people who are recognizing this because of tariffs and not just because of Target. You know, some people are saying, oh, Target's done it again. It's like,
it's a pretty shocking change in some of the action figure groups that I poke around on Facebook, where, you know, there was a general let's just stay away from politics and talk about points of articulation on Ponda Baba. And almost all the responses are anger about the tariffs. And there's a little bit of pushback, but night and day difference from a year ago. And I think it is to the Mon Mothma speech point, the real, you might not pay attention to politics, but eventually politics are going to be paying attention to you, whether you like it or not. And I think that's a pretty fascinating turn of events for a retro collection of Star Wars action figures.
Yeah, for my money, it is. Yeah, it is. As you say, Jen, it's an expensive set, but it's toys, and it's something that you might just kind of put in its own little bucket. For the most part, like you said, Joseph, it is, and maybe should be. Cal, we'll talk about Walrus Man existing here now in this line. Great, but this is something I think we're finding out. Like you said, Jen, the monster coming for us all. Like conversations I had this past week with people I know of. My steaks are so expensive and not really connecting to some of the larger picture. This is where it will be felt. So it's been fascinating to see. And I was in some of the comments on yakface.com of what was going on with folks. And sometimes the slow realization or the denial or just those going, yeah, we told you. It's a weird but perfect place to see it all come to fruition, the toy world. One of the other things in this story here is, the reality of what's going on and the tariffs and the world economy. And again, it's changing. You wake up and there's no, it's rolled back. No, it's back in. And it's 90 days. It's slashed, but it's still present. And then we saw last week, the idea of tariffs on films made in other parts of the world and not in America. This will continue to affect the toys and collectibles, but this might affect the production of Star Wars and shows. So there again, too, Jen, it comes to find you here on your little escapism Star Wars shows, like Andor, the one that just is pure escapism. Have we thought about that, Jen? Have you thought about what that will do? We know what's going on in our industry, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It ain't just dolls, as they keep saying. Oh, it's just dolls. Girls and their dolls. It's like, no, it's going to be video games. It's going to be action figures. It's going to be our favorite TV shows. And unfortunately, it's going to just take everyone having this realization, well, what's going on? Why is this show delayed? Why is this movie delayed? Maybe people will start to wake up, or maybe they'll continue to blame Biden, even though he's not president. I don't know. I have some people in my life who find all sorts of scapegoats other than what is like the reality right in front of their face. And so much of Star Wars is shot, and it's like so many shows are shot elsewhere. I can't, Canada, like, Bulgaria, France, like I don't know how you're going to do it, especially in the realm of Star Wars and anything fantasy. Because as somebody pointed out, what are you going to do? Shoot it in Ohio? Like, it's just not going to look the same as, like, say, New Zealand. Yeah. And I also do wonder how it will affect actors who are not US citizens. Will they even be wanting to work in these? Like, I don't know. It's just so complicated. And the scary thing is so unpredictable. And that's what's really frustrating, is it could change tomorrow. But like, as you know, just like when you're in production, you have to know what your schedule is, and you have to start planning, and you have to start paying people money. And it's like, you can't just be like, well, what's the whim of our emperor today?
Yeah. I'm talking to a VFX guy who's like, it's standard. He's like kind of a small couple person shop, but it's standard to have like, well, there's certain elements of this that are better set up in other countries, and we take the job and then we farm this part. Like, the whole film thing is cartoonish. Trump thinks there's a boat that says, European films that arrives in those physical reels of films. Like, the film industry is a global community that is interlaced in impossible to detangle ways with just anyway. But the thing that you said, Jen, that speaks to me so much is the instability. And I think that that's part of like the point of what is happening to us. And again, to relate it back to what we're seeing in Andor, is these aren't just policies. The chaos is a tactic. The chaos is the point. It isn't even an academic discussion of, do tariffs work? And my opinion would be not this way. But it's not even that. It's just, let's cause constant instability, make everyone feel tired, stressed, worn down. The things that might give you comfort, like Dr. Evison in plastic, is now you can't have that. And instead of that balm, you'll be talking about me. You'll be thinking about me. It's, I think it is a really, the chaos tactic is what this is all about to me, because we don't know day to day what will happen. And I think there's a lot of that in Andor, with seeing all of these people's different lives and the way that kind of just a web of good interconnection in the galaxy, everything being thrown into chaos and confusion to wear people down.
Yeah, even when it comes to the film production thing, yes, we would love to see a lot more production here in California, here in the States. That's a conversation we've had here. Randomly taking sledgehammers to entire parts of the system, especially the film industry, is not necessarily how it's going to work, how it should work, and it has the effect of what you're talking about, Joseph. Stress, insane amount of stress to every level here, and where you can't. When you can't go down to the store and get your favorite food, and hell, I even saw, it's got an article going around of our favorite Depression era foods. Like, we're already, getting ready to accept that. I had a conversation this past week with someone who was like, well, we got through this before. We're just going to eat cans of beans, and, that's what they did in the 30s. Like, well, but we don't have to do this to ourselves. We don't have to do this.
Self-inflicted.
You don't have to. And it's been very frustrating. And it all comes down to a retro collection of figures, which looks like a great set. Maybe we'll get it. And that's the thing, right? Final point for me on this is, like you were saying too, Joseph, the chaos. In 4 days, the set could be released. They could be taken off the boats at the ports or on the trucks or whatever, because something swung drastically in the other direction in terms of the tariffs and stuff going on. So we'll see. Anyway, final thoughts from Jen?
I just had a final thought. Part of this is also to get Disney and these big movie studios to bend the knee, and to maybe spin out some, like what we saw with Andor, some kind of propaganda films and more. And this is crazy. A friend of mine, she had not really been working as much, and she's a middle-aged white woman, very talented. And she's like, I have been busier than ever. And I'm like, really? And she goes, and I hate to think of the reason why. And I was like, oh, shoot. Yeah. Like, it's obviously just an anecdote. There's no, statistics or science behind it. But like, I really believe we're going to start to see a shift in our content, and that could be one way that some of these studios could get around the tariffs. It's like, oh yeah, we'll make the kind of films that you want us to make, and isn't the Gorman people are so snotty, and they're just like, oh my gosh, we could even go back to the early days, I think, of Disney. Anyways, I digress.
No. Interesting. Joseph, final thoughts from you, and we can move on, I guess, to more lighthearted stuff with Tony Gilroy.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you are not alone. No, I look forward to this set coming out and perhaps buying it on eBay someday for myself. I do think that, to bring it back to Star Wars, I think there's something really essential to me in the first Star Wars film when Luke says to Obi-Wan, it's not like you don't like the Empire, I hate them, but it's also far away from here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Obi-Wan's point is, it's moral, it's philosophical, but it's also political. You can choose to engage or not because it is affecting other people, and therefore it is affecting you because we're all connected. And I think if this is what it takes to drive that lesson from the original Star Wars film home, I at least am hopeful for the positive side of it, of people being more aware.
Yeah, I hope so too. Moving on, our next story here, our final story of the day. Tony Gilroy taken to the interview circuit and has some thoughts on Mon Mothma's speech. The buzz around Andor obviously has remained strong during this past week. The ratings of the episodes, the conversation around it. A lot of the focus, though, in that was the great speech of Mon Mothma that she, of course, delivered to the Imperial Senate, cited as seemingly being ripped from the headlines with its use of the word genocide, among other things, to describe the Gorman massacre perpetrated by the Imperials. Tony Gilroy spoke to James Hibbard at the Hollywood Reporter and had a lot to say on the speech and its connections to the present and, more importantly, to the past. I'm just going to read some of the stuff here from Tony. Then we can dive in. Tony said, "I'm really sorry truth about sorry truth about this question, and we get a lot, is that peace and prosperity and calm are the rarities. Those rarities throughout the last 6,000 years of recorded history. Those are rarities, excuse me. You could drop this show at any point in the last 6,000 years, and it would make sense to some people about what's happening to them. There's more," he says. "I mean, the control of truth has always been a scabbard of power. Power dictates the narrative and always has tried to always do that. Look at what the Empire does to the Gorman with their propaganda campaign. The first scene in the season that Krennic was where he talked about Gorman, that's based on the Wannsee Convention, the convention where the Nazis got together and planned the final solution over a business lunch. You could say all of this about the Gulf of Tonkin, which got America into Vietnam, or you could say the burning of the Reichstag, which paved the way to the Nazis' rise to power, or you could say the sinking of Lusitania, which, of course, pushed America into World War I. You can go all the way through history, and power is the control of truth. So I think with that speech, we were looking to the timeless and classic." And he adds, "I'm not psychic." So a lot of people, a lot there, and a lot of people talk about it. It keeps in line with our thoughts inside of our coverage of both Andor, and he mentioned of the Raid of the Empire, Mask of Fear book. These are full of moments ripped for the headlines because present-day power continues to draw from the same playbook. But I wanted to dive in here, Joseph, with your overall reaction to Tony's comments and everything about Mothma's speech here.
Yeah, I appreciate his repeated clarity that they're drawing from the sadly long history of fascism and its repetitive tactics. And I think that's something we talked about with Mask of Fear when a lot of us started reading that, and it felt very of the moment. That the scale of attempted fascism that we're experiencing in America right now is unprecedented in America. I won't say fascism is unprecedented, but the scale of it is unprecedented. But the history of fascism is very, very precedented in world history, and the tactics are very, very precedented. So I think for those of us going through this right now in America, it's a little bit of a, yes, this scale like this is unprecedented for America, but not for the world. So I love that he's making that clear. We didn't mean to be on the nose. It's just that these cycles repeat, like George Lucas told you, and like the sequel trilogy told you. But within that, I'm very curious what both of you think about the actual use of the word genocide. I think in Mothma's speech, there's a real power to she knows she's going to get cut off. And what's the most important thing that she needs to do is put a name to things. She puts a name to the act on Gorman, and she puts a name to the monster, to the wound at the center of the galaxy, as Marva said. The power of the speech ending on naming Emperor Palpatine. I love that her speech is about not just truth, but names, words. What's really interesting to me about this is I feel like the actual term genocide, I think both Tony Gilroy as a creator and Disney as a company could have changed that word. Like, probably when it was written, probably when it was initially filmed, we weren't having the same debate in the real world of, is this the appropriate word for what is happening? But by the time it released to us, they had plenty of time to reshoot it, choose a different word, and they didn't. So that's the part of it that has power to me. Not the general story about fascism and fascism's attack on truth, but the power of them allowing that word to remain.
Yeah, Jen, any thoughts there? Ivan.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I had the same thought. And when she said it, I did gasp a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, they're going there. Obviously we know this show was written, it was filmed several years ago before everything. They've made that very, very clear, but they absolutely could have changed it if they wanted to. They didn't. And it is a risk in some sense, but at the same time, you can say, well, this is a galaxy far, far away. This, you know, it kind of gives it that cover, if you will. I don't know, but I just will say that, yeah, it was a choice. It was a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the production timeline, I think, is even discussed in the Hollywood Reporter. We know the scripts maybe about 5 years ago, but production 2022, wrapping early 2024, after the events of October 7th, 2023. Yeah, as Tony says several times, got no notes. He keeps saying that, and we can have fun and joke with the character of Tony Gilroy with something, but got no notes. This was clear, and to your conversation point there, Joseph, of hey, words, naming it, in a sense, owning it. What I like about it right now with it coming out is that's a strong word. It's going to get some reactions. It's going to do some connections, but it elevated even what happened on screen to me from a massacre, from people standing up for something they believe in, and those on the other side. That could get misinterpreted real quick. It can be real quick, especially, we've all had those conversations about what January 6th was to some folks and what it is maybe to the rest of us. This elevated that. It made me, but hopefully others realize, no, that's what the Gorman massacre actually was. This attempted genocide, and I'd say attempted because there's still probably more gore out there, I know, but this genocide, this action of genocide by the Imperial troops, it was important, I think, like you said, Joseph, to say that's what it was for Mothma and for those in the galaxy. That's what it was. So if there's conversations around it that you want to string out to the real world, you could still misinterpret it. You could still apply your own thoughts and perspectives to other things, I guess, and those will. But I like that it owned it. It put a stake on it.
Yeah, and I think just looking at it in the context of Star Wars, I think in the context of storytelling, it is a more powerful scene, and it contributes to Mothma's character, that she is using that strong of a word, because it isn't atrocity or massacre. Right. It's saying you mean to not only take the lives of the people who live on this planet, but in taking them, you are taking away the culture that existed there, the culture that was also, from their art in their fashion, a part of the galaxy. And Mothma probably doesn't even know how literally correct she is, in that they told us in the first episode that the Imperials know, like, once we're done, the planet's probably going to collapse. So, like, what else would you call that? It isn't just the massacre in the square that we saw. It is this entire campaign. and I think giving it the weight of a very, very powerful word in the real world, I think communicated that, and it made it even more impressive what Mothma did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. This past week, a lot of the fandom got caught up in the canon behind the scene, and it's understandable. Was it connected to Rebels? Did it work for you, even though it was slightly different? Should it have been more accurate? Blue robe on, blue robe off, all these kind of things, and I poke fun a little bit, but those canon questions do mean much to us as fans. They always will. That's part of the fun. But how do we feel about Tony Gilroy? You had said it earlier, Jen, keeping the focus on what he wanted to do with this show, and how much more valuable is that to us in the end?
For me, I don't even compare it at all because they're two different mediums, so I can separate it. I think if you're really tied to what happened in Rebels, I can see how you might butt up against it. But I like that it's Tony Gilroy's take, and it's very, very powerful. All of it, and being in live action, it hits me a little bit more than in animation, and I love animation.
Yeah.
But I would have actually thought it would have been weird if they had done like a word for word. I don't know, it just would not fit with me with who Tony Gilroy is as a creator. Yeah. I don't think that would have worked. I wanted to see the Andor version of events. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big fan of animation here. Sometimes the writing's different. Sometimes the delivery, even though it's Genevieve O'Reilly. I said earlier, I think one of our shows, maybe the live show, she's playing Return of the Jedi Mon, and now we know so much more about Mon. So it all kind of works for me. And I for one do appreciate. We got Dan Gilroy and a lot of folks coming out talking about the transition or the connection to Rebels and those things. Those are fascinating conversations. I love talking about them last week. But I like that Tony keeps kind of getting out in front of it. And his questions aren't about that, and his answers aren't about that. His answers are what was there on the screen and what was the point of the moment. You know, Joseph?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I'm not really bothered by anything in Rebels. I know more things come out. The haircut, I didn't even notice the haircut, but like, okay, well, maybe she had a stressful trip and decided to change her hair. Canonically, that's when it happened. Yeah. Who cares? The only thing to me that is that is not exactly the same is the little bit of her Senate speech that Ezra and Hera are watching. And that kind of thing does not bother me at all. I really like canon as these events happened, but in different stories, we're going to get slightly different interpretations of them. I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but sometimes for me, it's fun to imagine of like, who's telling the story of Andor within the Star Wars galaxy? Is Maz Kanata telling this story at a bar? And is Ezra telling the story of Rebels at a bar? And you know, that's mostly the way Ezra remembers his speech. It's not word for word, but that speech it's not like she's talking about two different things. They're both about the Gorman massacre. They're both naming and shaming Emperor Palpatine. They're very, very much the same in spirit. And that's what matters to me. And I haven't read every interview, so I don't know what went into the decision, but dramatically it felt appropriate for Mothma's speech to end on the deepest, darkest, hardest thing to say, the naming of the monster, and that she'd be cut off there. And I think that for me, if I was writing Mothma's speech in Andor, that's the thing that the Rebel speech would make me feel a little held back on, of like, she feels like she's kind of in mid diatribe, mid speech, you know. And I think having that strong button in Andor was really powerful.
Yeah, and I get it. We always going to get it. I mean, the K2SO introduction is completely changed. We're in this era now, and I saw our buddy Alex Damon did a great video, thoughts on that, where he said, hey, outside of my review, I want to talk about the K2SO thing. And yeah, as a canon junkie whose entire channel was kind of started on this idea of keeping track of stuff, yeah, I have some thoughts on it, and I might too. But I always, it's not necessarily one-to-one comparison, but I do go to George R. R. Martin one time saying, you know, the question is, how many children does Scarlett O'Hara have? 3 in the novel, 1 in the movie. The answer is none. In real life, she was a fictional character. She never existed. The show is the show, the books are the books, two different tellings of the same story, which sometimes I wish George remember his own words, but different podcast. But that's kind of this too. I don't even remember what she said on Rebels. I had to go watch it, you know? We were discussing off air last week, just like there's some confusion about the amount of speeches and what speech was shown and this and that. So in the end, I'm not going to remember word for word. Clearly, I struggle with quotes and trivia contests all the time. of what she said on Rebels, other than that was there. The speech was there. This works for me. And what is left is, as we're discussing here today, the importance of the choice. And I love what you're saying, Joseph, just structurally. That's an ending, man. That's a mic drop. That's what we need.
And I just want to say too, like, we have to think about the audience for these shows. Like, I can show my 5-year-old Rebels, and she's going to understand that language is appropriate for all ages. The Andor stuff is using more adult language. My daughter is not going to know what genocide is. I'm going to have to explain it to her, and it's going to play differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that's another thing to consider, at least for me, the language used.
Fair point.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense.
Part of Andor's legacy will be the unsubtle and clear manner in which it delivered political themes and ideas that are always present in Star Wars, and that can lead to discourse that becomes frustrating for us, and I'm trying to own that frustration. That even has emerged this week. Next weekend I got to go to a party with someone who posted something that I really want to debate about Star Wars and Andor, but it's not trolls, it's not random people. This is everywhere. But I had this kind of twist on it, and I wanted to ask you both here. How do we feel about the idea that a show like this was needed to finally grab the attention of the larger Star Wars audience, and sometimes a larger general Star Wars audience, who only looks at Star Wars as fun and fantasy? Just, the idea that, yeah, it's always been there. Yeah, it's in Bad Batch. Yeah, it's in Solo. Yeah, it's here. But this said here, digest it, look at it, roll around with it, figure it out for yourself as a fan. And that has a lot of value. And I'm trying to twist my perspective from the grumpy, frustrating, hey, Book of Boba Fett's got some great stuff in it too, to, all right, now maybe we can have conversations about the rest of Star Wars with people now clued in. I don't know if that's a pipe dream, Joseph, but I'm going to try.
Some parts of it are dreamlike, but it's good to hope.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm happy Andor exists less because it might open up people who are middle to mixed to negative on Star Wars to the political framework of Star Wars. Maybe it will, and that's great. I think more for me, it's when we as humans have to fight these evergreen battles, we need to tell these stories again. They need to be freshened up. I feel strongly that some of what we're in right now is because the World War II generation has died out. It's still powerful to me because my grandfather was destroyed by World War II. And anyway, I remember first hearing a lot of the ideas in Andor from a cassette tape of a 1-hour radio adaptation of George Orwell's 1984. And, you can have that bias of like, well, I learned about this when I was 10 listening to that cassette tape. Doesn't everybody know this about fascism, right? But I'm happy that these messages are being delivered by Star Wars, and so that people who maybe haven't had the chance to really think about them, really absorb them, that these ideas are delivered in such a compelling and thoughtful and interesting and even a fun way, in that it's fun to watch really great storytelling. In terms of your specific hope, Ken, I think I'm working on trying to be Jedi-like in simply accepting that there are things that I disagree with that will simply always be. Yes. And I think I have such a hard time with folks who can't look beyond pulpy or pew 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 and say there's also great meaning there, and will only accept great meaning if it's done like Andor, extremely well, but grabbing you by the lapels and shaking you instead of going, yeah, Solo is fun, but also just take a second and go, what do the characters care about? What are they trying to do? What did the opening text tell you? It's not very deep, but for a lot of people, it's just like, unless you grab me by the lapels, I only see the pew pew pew, and that's it. And that's some people that's just the way some people are always going to absorb genre storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, I'm closing my eyes. I'm dreaming. I'm trying to go to a happy spot. Yeah, it's infuriating. But again, to your point too. Also to your point, like yeah, we have a deep dive podcast and have had it for 11 years. I'm seeing things now that I didn't see 15, 20 years ago. So I think that's part of my frustration. It was like let me lead you to the promised land of purpose and poignancy in the pew pew pew. But Jen, your thoughts on it here too, but just the idea that, hey, at the very least right now, in a important, crucial, dangerous political time, Star Wars is getting credit for being right in the center of it and speaking on these things. And that's something I definitely enjoy and want to live with. Not enjoy that we have to have this, but as a fan, I'm proud of.
Yeah, and it's I can see how people may have like ignored the bigger message. Like when I was a kid, I didn't really understand like, I was like good people, bad people. Like that's how I viewed it, right? And the pew pew and all that stuff. And it was very much like more philosophical and like your destiny and the hero's journey. And that's really what I gravitated towards. So I can see how maybe people missed the thing about fascism in that, even though in 1974, George's handwritten notes are very clear that the empire is America. All right, moving that along. And then when the prequels came along, he's like, hey, I'm going to get even clearer with you guys, right? And I kind of missed it a little bit because it was like, I want the fun swashbuckling adventure of the original trilogy. So I can't be too hard on these people who are now suddenly being like, well, this is interesting. Star Wars has never really been political, but this is good. I don't know. I feel like the people that need to learn from this, unfortunately, are probably not going to learn from it. And that's what I think what makes me so upsetting when I see people believing that they are the Jedi and they are clearly the Sith or the Empire. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we are so far. And that's the thing with art is people are going to view it through their own personal lens, and they're going to make it work for them. Maybe some people will be changed because of Andor. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not hopeful. Sorry, guys.
No, yeah. But
hope. That's my title.
That's
podcasts are built on hope.
Podcasts are built on hope and StreamYard. Yeah, that's a part of it too. Of we know what the administration posted on May 4th, which was laughably dumb but dangerously evil. But I'm also talking about those. My frustration always lies. This particular thing lies with those who I consider on my team, not just politically, but just in the Star Wars world. I will say, I in 2017 into 18, I was really grumpy at those people that didn't like Last Jedi. I'm more grumpy now at people that like Last Jedi but have completely missed the point of it. Completely, and that's been my frustration for a long time that I'm trying to work through. But all to boil it down to this, yeah, I'm maybe trying to turn the gauges just a little bit in my brain to go, okay, instead of me getting mad at you and wanting to throw the mini hot dogs and the shrimp cocktail at you at the party I'm going to be at, let's actually talk about what is in the other things too and try to connect those. And maybe that's something we, just do going forward too on some things. The politics of Solo are fascinating to me and they're real and they're important. So let's have that conversation. Maybe people will be open to it now, but I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some people who are just like, hey, I prefer modern prestige television as a storytelling style. And there's no doubt about it. Andor is the quality of the writing, the quality of the dialogue, the focus on the uber focus on the real, and sometimes the exclusion of the pulp. Like sometimes that's just going to be, that's the dish that people want to eat. The other thing I think about it that I need to separate out is, I'm having a hard time with the phrase pew, 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 because I feel like for me, it used to be something fun that people kind of liked pew, 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 which I think is another way to say pulp or genre. It used to be a shorthand. And now it feels like it's being used in a disparaging way of like, finally, Star Wars isn't just pew, pew, pew. Like, yes, there are parts of Star Wars where, hey, George also likes things going fast. So the pod race is going to last for a long time. All right. That's
zoom.
But we're still zoom. But we're learning things about the characters. But I think my big picture is there is great depth and meaning in the pew, pew, pew of Star Wars. Just taking it as the lightsaber. The lightsaber isn't just like a fun fantasy, it's just some swashbuckling stuff that And if you ignore it, you could get to the real stuff. It is the symbol of choice. It is a symbol of when to fight and when to throw your weapon down. It's a symbol of what can a weapon be? Is it meant only to attack, or can it be a shield? There's so much in the pew 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 that is full of meaning. And I think even if somebody never ever made the choice to analyze it, if somebody said, as a choice, I refuse to analyze Star Wars, they still feel the depth of the storytelling and the depth of the meaning of the pew pew pew, or Star Wars would not still be this popular, and it wouldn't have been this popular in 1977. Everyone and their uncle made a knockoff of Star Wars that was just pew pew pew, and those are fun cultural curiosities, whereas Star Wars is a bedrock story of our time. So there has to be something in the pew 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 that people are sensing and feeling on an emotional level, even if they aren't getting out their notebooks and writing down their theme essays. That's fun to do, and we love to do that here, but you don't need to do that to feel what's there. And I think that's why Star Wars has been successful and why it continues.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in a way, just how that phrase is something we still use it here. We know what it represents, and it does represent sometimes silly little fun, but it represents this entire thing to us. Like I have a little pin that I occasionally put on my jacket, the pew pew pew. I got it as a gift. But like a lot of things that suddenly gets adopted and used, like it's not a 1-to-1, but like, you want to get me grumpy? Wear a sports ball shirt, and you start here how you're I got it. I got the joke. And now you're using it as a weapon against something that I love and take lessons from. So I kind of have I see what you're saying there and connect with that too. Yeah. Sorry, Jed.
No. I think a lot of it comes from like people feeling like they need to grow up, and perhaps there's people in their lives or society that's like Star Wars is for kids, or even Star Wars is for everyone, which they may not like. And so they feel like they have to gravitate to the more gritty and the more like dark side of Star Wars, and they don't have to be as ashamed of it with the quote unquote Disneyfication of Star Wars, which they supposedly hate. And it's like the beauty, the brilliance of Star Wars is that I can show my kids The Empire Strikes Back, and I can show my mom The Empire Strikes Back, and both of those people are going to get it, and they're going to get the message. That is incredibly powerful art. And Andor is fantastic. And Andor is a prestige Star Wars thing. But you can't have Andor without the original trilogy and being able to play to all ages and the messages. Like, I don't understand why people are going to crap on the pew pew. The pew pew is what has given us, look at how many years it's given us. I just feel like we're going back to the 90s, where it's like, oh, I like the EU. This is all I like. Or no, sorry, the more like the late 90s, when the prequels came out, right? This is what I wanted. Now this is what's happening with Andor. It's just replaced the EU.
Final question coming up here, but I had a thing. I had a thing with a friend of my former coworker, who's big Star Wars fan, like not casual, big Star Wars fan, but he hasn't been happy with a lot of things the last few years, and has good reasons for it. Like but he said some things that have infuriated me, but I get it. It's one of those things. It's nothing between us. The Book of Boba Fett called it one of the worst things ever made. This and that. Just today, I was just getting ready, waking up, and he posted on Facebook, it was just a picture of Andor, and he's like, I don't get why people like this show. It's not Star Wars. It's not fun. It's slow. It's boring. It's hard to follow. The main character was a side character for the first 3 episodes. I'm like, not wrong there. And I just was like, okay. All right. I'm like, what do I do with you now? What do I do with you now?
Yeah.
So it's a whole wonderful world out there talking Star Wars. Final thing there, we often get the questions about the future Star Wars shows, and would we want to see a show presented in an Andor-like fashion, which to me comes down to that rated R Star Wars, dark and gritty, those terms that to me just boils down, people want to see blasters and butts in Star Wars, violence and adult themes for just the sake of violence and adult themes. I don't think Andor is in that. So I'm changing my perspective on that question too. So seeing the hard truths, as I say, this nice phrase to discuss everything going on in Andor. Seeing the hard truths Andor was able to address. Budget concerns aside, tariff concerns aside, what other possible Star Wars stories could we see cover history and politics in a similar way? Jen, what era do you want to go? Pitch a show in one sentence. You don't have to fully pitch a show. I'm kidding.
I really struggle with this question because Andor is unique because it's very much a Tony Gilroy show. And his style, what makes Tony Gilroy so successful, is it happens to just blend really well with this point of the Star Wars story. When you get an auteur, like a Guillermo del Toro or a Jordan Peele, directors I love. Like, I want to see their unique take on their original films. And I don't know how that would work within the Star Wars world. I think it's one of the challenges is to keep it Star Wars, as your friend is saying. Like, Andor doesn't feel like Star Wars. And I can see that criticism. So how do you maintain the DNA of Star Wars and make it Star Wars, but also make it unique with the unique perspective from a director? I don't know.
Yeah.
I got nothing. No one to pitch.
The only thing, where my mind goes to right now is thinking about this is, I was watching, I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some of the highlights of Oscar Isaac interviewing Diego Luna, Benjamin Bratt, and a lot of the others for an Andor screen in New York. And Oscar Isaac has said, I think he even said around, whether it's this interview or not, he said, someone asked him directly, would you return to Star Wars for the new Jedi Order film? And he said, no. Exclamation point on the end of that. No. And I get it. He returned to Disney in a surprise move for Moon Knight and did it in a very unique and in a style that he wanted to present. So I'm like, how do I get him back? Because I want Oscar Isaac back at Star Wars. I want Poe Dameron back at Star Wars. And, dealing with themes of reconstruction and how to rebuild society, how to do it the right way. We have this post Episode 9 era that we're starting to explode into. I'd love to see him. I'd love to do this in the Rey film, but I think that's going to be something different. We still call it the Rey film, but it's a New Republic, New Jedi Order film. But having a year or two post the Battle of Exegol, and how do we do this? And how does a general who was once on the ground take part in this? We've seen in the past generals from great wars move into positions of political leadership. Could Poe Dameron be someone that does that? And then you give Oscar the scripts he wants, the writers he wants, the acting style he wants, the choices maybe he wants. I'd be interested if we had Andor, we could also have Poe. I'm on board with my own pitch.
President Poe coming this fall to Disney Plus.
Wow.
No, those are great, great, I think, political things to explore of how do you rebuild a government after everything that the galaxy has been through. And I think the New Republic era of storytelling is definitely going to do that. But then we also have after the sequel trilogy. For me, the era that I would love to explore is the build up to the sequel trilogy. The films have played with it. The publishing has been explicit about it, of the appeasement of the First Order, and the Empire seems so far in the past, and the fear of them is both real and also like, come on, but stormtroopers,
right.
that's all cartoonish. And I think it is intended. It's very similar to our own real world of the reality of the Nazis has been forgotten in our decades and decades of talking about them is cartoons or hyperbole instead of
the ultimate
real,
example.
sad, broken humans, And I think one of the things about the sequel trilogy that is the most powerful and the most fresh to Star Wars storytelling is, we've talked about it a lot, but Ben Solo basically falling to the manipulations of Palpa 4chan, of just being inundated with everybody is trying to take your identity away. They're making you weak. Why don't you be strong this way? It's so powerful. Reject your legacy, but also demand that lightsaber belongs to you. It's a real personal version of that. But I feel like if you did even an animated series like the Clone Wars with Kylo's seduction paired with government people who were falling into the trap of appeasing the First Order instead of being honest about the problem coming back. I think that'd be a pretty powerful thing to talk about right now.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I like it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get Kathy on the line.
Yeah, animation.
There we go.
It's gritty adult animation. We'll see how far Maul goes.
We'll see. Thanks for those answers. Loved it there. And that is kind of the end of our Star Wars news discussion. Any final thoughts, Jen, before we close for today?
No, I wish I should channel some hope. I don't know. I don't know what. I need more coffee. Maybe hope is at the bottom of my coffee cup.
Maybe. Joseph, any final thoughts on very realistic topics today? We get it. Real world.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, I mean, I said this before, but just about Andor, I think, it doesn't feel like other Star Wars. It feels like its own Star Wars. And to me, that's the whole point of the buffet is I want different flavors of Star Wars. And sometimes I want tacos, sometimes I want pizzas, sometimes I want a cheeseburger, sometimes I want dessert for dinner. And Andor is just one of the many dishes. And, I think it's very Star Wars while also feeling different than other Star Wars. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Indeed. Rewatching episode 9 of not the movies, but of Andor season 2. It's very Star Wars to me. So the questions, the debates, all of it will go on. But hey, Star Wars is once again at the center of some very important conversations, and we appreciate that. We're leaving you today. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. If you're still tooling around there, a podcast is available in a lot of spots, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. And merch is available at TeePublic or at Fourth Wall, links down below. And patreon.com/ForceCenter where you can support us directly and get into our Discord and have some robust conversations about Star Wars in the real world. Follow me at Ken Napzok and my website, which works for some browsers, but not others. Got to solve that problem. But KenNapzok.com. Right now, I'm letting you all know on May 30th, going to have a co-headlining show at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank. Me and Mark Ellis headlining the show, followed by a comedy press conference. Come on out May 30th, 7:30 p.m. Ticket information is on Flappers' website or mine as well, if you can get to it. Jen, where can I find and follow you?
You can find me and my costumes and political musings at Jennifer Landa on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. I'm trying to get back into Threads too. Why not? And also TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
Good luck to you, ma'am.
Exactly.
Josephine, where can I find and follow you?
You can follow me right now on Blue Sky. I'm not active on Threads. I will probably get back to posting some stuff as I need to promote the film. But I'm just not going to share any of my thoughts about Threads.
Right.
So find me on Blue Sky for now. And you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com. And if you are willing and able and interested in helping me get the post-production finished for this horror film, there is a link where you can make a one-time tax-deductible donation to the film via a great organization called Film North. All that's on my website, josephscrimshaw.com.
There it is. There you go. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.